Listen to the stillness, silence, which really isn't silence at all, of course. There's many sounds. So behind the sounds, penetrate through the sights that come through the vision, sense within yourself a place of silence, a place of stillness. Locate that within your own body, within your own being. A place of stillness beyond your own breath, beyond your own thoughts. Just let your mind search that out. Let your focus of awareness go to that place of stillness. This is your inner temple. From here you can watch all activity, everything of your life. It is beyond time, so it encompasses every aspect of your life, all of your history. Whatever comes before your mental screen, in terms of thoughts, images, inner dialogue, does not affect that stillness. In this temple of stillness, this temple of silence, lies all that you are and more in potential. But it is at rest and yet full of life. It is beyond thought, yet it has all intelligence. Notice what happens inside of you when you reside in that place of stillness, which you experience. Who and what you notice and know yourself to be. Without any need of leaving that place of stillness, all activity can occur. And from that place of stillness, Let us all pray together. O Heavenly Father,
O Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Beloved Jesus Christ,
Beloved Jesus Christ,
Babaji,
Babaji,
Lahari Mahasya,
Lahari Mahasya,
Swami Shri Yukteswarji,
Swami Shri Yukteswarji,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Paramahansa Yogananda,
Beloved Mother,
Beloved Mother,
Saints and Sages of all religions,
Saints and Sages of all religions,
I bow to all of you.
I bow to all of you.
Free my life from all obstacles.
Free my life from all obstacles.
And give me physical, mental, and spiritual development.
And give me physical, mental, and spiritual development.
Make my mind thy temple.
Make my mind thy temple.
Make my heart thy altar.
Make my heart thy altar.
Make my love thy home.
Make my love thy home.
Be thou the only King.
Be thou the only King.
Reigning on the throne of my consciousness.
Reigning on the throne of my consciousness.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. With that bit of time spent in silence, in the stillness of your own self, if you can imagine residing in that and going deeper with it, coming into a place of absolute stillness, beyond thought, beyond physical sensation, fully conscious and aware, but completely still. This is silence. Mother one time said that even a flicker of an eyelash is communication, is lack of silence. So there's varying levels of silence. I've had the great privilege this year to be able to spend this time not speaking, but not speaking in itself is not silence. There's plenty of activity. And sometimes my hermitage gatherings became very crowded with all the activity. Even within activity there can be silence. And silence can be a great healer. Because in silence and stillness there's no fear. There's just being. And it is an amazing thing what happens when there's no fear. Suddenly, new worlds become available to you. Things that we were too busy running our lives, making things happen, filling in the gaps, filling in silence with chatter, activity, with everything except becoming still. That's not an easy thing. Not an easy thing to do at all. But when we come into that place, we come into a truer knowledge of who we really are. And it doesn't necessarily come like a flash. But it can be like the leavening of the bread that begins to germinate, begins to grow. This growing sense of awareness of who you really are, what you really are. Most of us protect ourselves from knowing that, which seems like craziness, and it is. But we do. We don't want to know that because we're afraid that if we come into a place of stillness, we cease to exist. But in all the scriptures and the literature, it tells us that we are Sat Chit Ananda, consciousness, eternal existence, and bliss. And that is anything but death, nothingness. It is the everythingness of life. But we have to be willing to move through that place of facing that fear and going through it. And then it's like going through a birth canal. We come out on the other side. And we come into this greater awareness and knowledge of who we really are. And this is the price that all must pay in order to gain entry. And we can figure out all kinds of reasons why not to do it. And lots of legitimate reasons, perhaps. We're too busy, we have too many responsibilities. Everything demands our attention out of the world. But to turn that attention inside and bring it to that place of stillness gives us that second birth, that rebirth into something greater. I was sitting here thinking about, what will I talk about today? You'd think I'd have lots of stuff to talk about. It's interesting because groups come to Cloud Mountain. Some stay for a few days, some stay for a week, some 9 days, some 3 weeks. One thing that was similar to them all is that when they broke their silence, I'd have to come down for some reason or another, and I'd hear them all chatting away. And if I had any thought that I'm missing something by being a part of communication, that usually cured me. Most talk is not all that meaningful or worthwhile. It's a venting of energy. We experience that too. We sit in meditation for some time. Afterwards, there's this kind of explosion of noise and sound and laughter, and we're not used to holding that energy. It's a lot. And there's a lot in us that goes into planning our day, to talking about things, being active in the world. And to think about turning that all inside and lifting it up, it's not an easy task to do. We're just not used to doing it. And so, if we hold it for a while and it get uplifted, then there's this tendency to let it all out. And of course, we waste much of that energy that we stored up and we brought up into our own being. So much of our spiritual path, in terms of going inside, is learning to hold that and to bring it up and transmute that into something higher, something greater. And unless we really practice that and do that, then we don't get the fullness of the experience. We don't get that transformation that can take place inside of us. And it's a bit like mathematics, if you make the investment, you get the result, and if you don't make the investment, you don't get the result. It's just simple like that. So either you make a determination in your life and make it an activity make it an act, will, a desire to turn the mind inside, bring it back inside, lift it up the spine and into the higher centers. Then you can talk about spirituality, you can talk about living a spiritual life, but you're not living it. You're not making that transformation. And it just simply is. It just simply is. Either you do it or you don't do it. Either we live the life or we don't live the life. And theorizing, talking about, doesn't do that much good. It is that determination to turn the will inside. And to lift that energy up into the higher nature of our being. I think one thing that sustained me through this last year, that fed me, that gave me strength, was your love. Your prayers, your good wishes, your support. And it's that rang most true for me. And it seems an ironic thing in a way that to withdraw yourself in a physical sense, there's actually more love that's generated. And that in the heart, that there's no separation. No separation at all. And I think many of you experienced that with me as well as I with you. And certainly we miss each other. But there's also that inner connection. And so there's nothing lost by going inside. It's really the essence of our own being. And in that essence resides everything else. I seem to be talking in random spurts here. Maybe it'll all make sense in the end. We'll find out. One of the things that I didn't know when I went there was a hidden desire that I had. Spoken about it, written about it a little bit. That's the desire for Babaji to come in a certain form, in a certain way. And that when I went inside and I started to pray for that began a series of communications. And at first, the answer was no. That it was not going to come in the way that I wanted it to do. But it came in an inward way. And this open communication back and forth started to happen as quick as lightning. Just so fast. It startled me. And in fact, I'd have to mentally, I got the answer before I asked the question. And I'd have to ask myself the question and know what the question is. Because I got the answer so quick I wasn't even sure. And sure enough, that was the answer. Okay. And so it came on that level. But then it deepened even into a deeper level. Until there was this kind of fusion that happened, this integration. And what I realized was that what I was looking for in terms of an outer expression coming to me was kind of a half-baked kind of a request, a desire. That this integration was what I was really desiring and really wanted. And with that, then there is no question and answer. There's no I and thou. As Martin Buber would always say. It's just one. The thing that I would like to do more than anything else is to take you somehow inside of me, for you to know what that experience is. It doesn't work that way. Isn't it wonderful just to sit inside these things? Anybody have any thoughts or questions? Observations?
Because of the color that we're talking about, it doesn't make any difference what the words are. The presence is just a thought.
Or not so. One thing that I can say is that I love you all very much.
It's waiting for this year to hear your voice again.
A very interesting thing about consciousness is that each day you would come spontaneously to mind. And this communication would happen. You'd find out many things about you. You don't have to hide under the chair. But the love is the thing that is there more than anything else.
I think the thing I've appreciated, David, about this year is introducing so many of us to silence, because while we may have heard about people practicing it in spiritual and even knowing somebody like Swami Satchidananda who practices silence one day a week, being the kind of person I am, it's never been something that I have voluntarily taken up. But I found it very enriching and rewarding, and I probably wouldn't, well, who can say what one will do? You said before you did it, you didn't even think of doing it before, but at any rate, having it there once a month and something that we can come to, and especially that weekend that we spent. I found that weekend that when we could talk again, I didn't really want to. And so I think it deepens, for all of us that did it, it deepens the going within, and then also realizing that you can do it. And that...
not to be afraid of it.
Exactly. So I found it very rewarding to spend that time. And we'll miss it.
Well, maybe we'll continue it in some form or another. It may seem strange. It may have seemed strange to me. Well, you think about these yogis who spend their time in caves. What do they do? And the thing that I found was that there's days when I didn't leave my cabin at all. No desire to. No ability to. And when we are all this mini reflection of God's creative force, and that we're a perfect reflection of that out of